Hello again, YouTube family. Thanks for tuning into this video. For those of you who do, again, whether by accident or on purpose, please, if you like the videos, feel free to like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications if you want. And let's jump into today's video. As you can tell by the graphic, it involves the state of Kentucky. The Kentucky Senate passed Senate Bill 211. It's a bill that's primary sponsor is Senator Danny Carroll. He's a former assistant police chief. And the bill passed the Senate with a vote of 22 to 11. 6 Republicans voted against it, 22 for it, and then the 5 Democrats who voted against it. What this bill does, I would call it the "don't hurt my feelings, I'm a cop" bill. And what the bill does is makes it a Class B misdemeanor if someone accosts, insults, taunts, or challenges law enforcement with offensive or derisive words, or by gestures or other physical contact that would have a direct tendency to provoke a violent response from the perspective of a reasonable and prudent person. And anyone charged with rioting will be held in jail for a minimum of 48 hours. It's a Class D felony to resist, according to, another thing, part of this bill is it is a Class D felony to resist arrest during a riot. A riot is defined in the bill as a public disturbance involving 5 or more people that by tumultuous and violent conduct creates a grave danger of damage or injury to property or persons, or substantially obstructs law enforcement or other government functions. And defending his bill, Carroll cited windows being broken at a Kentucky Oaks Mall in Paducah, Kentucky, even though the investigation of that incident led the local police in Paducah to determine that the mall vandalism was not protest-related. The mall was vandalized during the protest over the Breonna Taylor shooting. She was a resident in Louisville, Kentucky. There were protests in Kentucky and around the nation. Her death, along with that of George Floyd and many, many others, led to mass protests last summer. And Carroll connected vandalism at a mall in Paducah to protests that were going on in Kentucky, even though the local Paducah police determined that the mall vandalism was not related to the protests. And therein lies part of the problem with a bill like this. The bill heads to the House. They've got 3 days to pass it before the governor's veto power kicks in. And let's go over the bill a little bit. Like I said, the big thing is it criminalizes taunting police, insulting police, and they define it as, having a direct tendency to provoke a violent response from the perspective of a reasonable and prudent person. They do not define what a reasonable and prudent person is. There's nothing defining what gestures constitutes criminal taunts or threats or challenges or anything else. And it's a very vague bill that basically, police have a broad scope right now to just, as you've seen, I'm sure. Some of you may be the ardent defend police no matter what perspective, some of you may be way skeptical of police, the way I am. But police have a broad berth to conduct themselves and their jobs the way they want. I mean, most of the times, courts will defend police, police will defend police, police leadership will defend the police. I mean, this Kentucky state senator, Danny Carroll, who is the primary sponsor of the bill, is a former police assistant chief of police, so he is former police leadership. And this, to me, is the problem. We have leadership like this that they come up with what we really need is a way to give police more power to just go out and brutalize people if people make them mad. If people say things they don't like. If people look at them and they feel like, wow, that was a taunt to me, I'm going to go beat his head. And then with response to the protests, the bill also, has rather vague description of what a riot is. I mean, the thing is, if you're arrested for rioting, you're to be held in jail for a minimum of 48 hours. And that has nothing to do with being convicted of rioting. That's just if a cop decides, hey, hands behind your back, I'm going to cuff you, take you into jail. He was rioting. He's in jail for 2 days. 2 days in jail because the cop said so. Insane. I mean, that is the literal definition of a police state. The cop says he was rioting, you go to jail for 2 days, and then if it turns out, well, no, by law it wasn't a riot, okay, you can go now. And then you're out of jail, and the bill is protecting the cops. The cops have all kinds of protection. It's insane. You have constitutional law professors who have chimed in on it. They've, brought up that the Senate bill in Kentucky violates the First, Fourth, and 14th Amendments of the Constitution. Those are the amendments that cover free speech, equal protection, and due process. And as they have said, the bill is too vague and too broad. It just gives a extremely broad scope for police to attack and brutalize people because you hurt their feelings. And that's where the right wing in this country is going. This whole idea of the cops, you can't say anything to them, can't look at them. They bark orders at you and you just do what they say. I mean, that is police state BS, I mean, like in this picture, we've got cops who are dressed commonly in crazy stuff like this. People are out there protesting, holding signs, and they're wearing riot gear. You've got cops dressed like invading military forces. You've had, over the last 2 decades, billions of dollars of military-grade equipment going to police in this country. It's insane. And now you have this former police officer who was in a leadership position in the Senate in Kentucky pushing this bill that criminalizes hurting a cop's feelings. And my problem with this whole police discussion is, in this country, there are too many police officers that are so similar to Trump. They have massive egos that are extremely fragile. And if you question anything they say, if you ask questions about anything as they're barking their BS at you, they lose their mind. They absolutely lose their minds. And they are so well protected. They're protected by the police, their fellow police officers. They're protected by the police leadership. They're protected by the right-wing politicians. They're protected by the courts. They have so much protection. I mean, Tamir Rice, young kid, 11 or 12 years old, dead, and the cops are still suffering no punishment from murdering a child, playing in a playground next to a rec center. It's insane. And now we have former police leadership in political positions saying we need to go further. We need to give cops more authority to rein in on these people that make them so mad. You know, because right now you can tell a cop to go piss off. I mean, you have protected speech. If you're not committing a crime, if you're not being pulled over for a traffic infraction or whatever, you know, you have freedom of speech with cops. You know, you can't make physical threats. I mean, there are laws already protecting cops against physical threats, and certainly against. I mean, the bill mentions contact, physical contact. I mean, if you put your hands on a cop, you're going to get arrested. You're probably going to get beat up. You're certainly going to go to jail, and you're going to have to go to court. I mean, they're already protected against that. And and the primary thing is, if you hurt their feelings, if you put a crack in that fragile, massive ego so many of these cops have, now you're criminally liable. That's what the bill does. But as the law professors have said, any challenge on this bill and it's getting shot down through the judiciary. It violates 3 of the Constitution's amendments, the 1st, 4th, and 14th. And the freedom of speech clause is in this. You've already had lower courts, federal courts, and the Supreme Court rule on freedom of speech when it comes to dealing with public servants. You still have freedom of speech dealing with public servants. There is a limit to that speech as far as hate speech and threats of violence. There are limits to it. But you are certainly able to insult a cop, to call a cop a name because you're mad at him, and he has no recourse right now because you're protected under this nation's Constitution, and that's settled law. The mandatory 48 hours in jail, that's insane. That is, if a cop decides they want to put you in jail for 48 hours, all they've got to do is arrest you if you're with a group of 5 or more friends, or if you're out peacefully protesting, just holding up signs, walking, not bothering anybody on a public sidewalk. They can, with the way this bill is worded, they can arrest you for rioting. You're going to jail for 48 hours, even if you weren't rioting. Even if, the facts come out and they're like, oh, okay, it wasn't a riot. You still spent the 48 hours in jail. That's the thing. That's the due process issue. Is a cop can just say, oh, I'm arresting you for rioting. You're going to jail for 48 hours. How do you like that? Because their massive, fragile ego was shattered slightly. It's insane. There are too many bad cops. Unfortunately, so many of the bad cops, as I've probably said before on this channel, are cops who have more time on the force. I mean, in the last 10 years, certainly probably the last 15 years, maybe the last 20 years, as cell phones, camera phones have become more common, there's cameras everywhere. Everything's getting filmed. Cops are constantly getting filmed, and they're mad about that. You watch some of these videos online, cops get so pissed when you're videoing them. It bugs them, because for so long in this country, cops had an even broader ability of what they could do to you because they weren't on film. They weren't on camera. They do something, you say, well, they did this to me, and the cop says, well, no, this is what happened. It's in my report. And the cop was the one who was believed because they're the cop. And that's what we're learning. I mean, even now with cameras, you have cops who are being filmed, write lies in the report. The videos surface of what really happened. You see the cop lied, and the cop's still not punished. Cops, and before the camera phones, before cameras were everywhere, it's insane the things cops got away with, the things they did, the things they got away with, because, as some cops have said, they're the ones who determine what the truth is. They write what the truth is in the report. And that's not cops saying that they're honest and running the truth. They're saying our narrative is the one that's getting believed, not your narrative. If we say you're a criminal, everybody's just going to believe you're a criminal because we're the cop and we're saying so. And this bill is the "don't hurt my feelings, I have a badge" bill. What the hell, Kentucky? Come on now. You've already embarrassed yourself with politicians like Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul. Come on, Kentucky. I know plenty of people in Kentucky. I have family in Kentucky. I know there's some really great people in Kentucky. I know there's people who are honorable in Kentucky. I know there are people who, if they looked at the details of this bill, would say there's no way that should become law. But you're electing these people into office. Come on, people of Kentucky. Come on. I'm counting on you to start kicking these a-holes out of office. Putting people in office who will write legislation that matters. Not legislation that protects cops' feelings, but legislation that helps people in the state of Kentucky. Come on. And that's the story for today. Please leave any comments that you want, good, bad, or ugly, and thanks for watching.